Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Sumit and I'm a Salesforce consultant. I'm working with plaineducation.com and here with my new video in Salesforce integration. And the topic for today's video is that how can we invoke the external API calls from Salesforce using REST API. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate you how can we invoke a weather map API into Salesforce to demonstrate the current location of a city or current weather of a city inserted by uh, our client, our user, so that we can help them out in a proper direction. So in order to do that, there are certain requirements. So the number one, we must have a Salesforce developers account. And the second, we need to have the API address or the API URL for a weather map, the service which we are going to use. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate you how to configure a new weather map API. That's a free of cost, and you can try it out for your for this particular task.
Weather map app, and my requirement is I would like to see the current weather for the current record. So in Salesforce, so this will show the current weather in India, and my requirement is whenever I insert a new record into account, we have a field called shipping address, and I change shipping address to Delhi. And when I save it, I want to have an embedded Visualforce page or a button link, command button link. And by clicking on it, I would like to extract the current weather for the entered area, the current shipping address. So we will be using openweathermap.org to get the weather and temperature of the account shipping city. And in order to do that, first of all, you need to have a developer's account. So you need to visit this link, http openweathermap.org, and you need to register here yourself. And once you register, you can navigate to API to get the API for current weather data. So it's a simple, clear, and free. It's freely available, and I would be using the current weather data. So I click on subscribe and get API key and start. Okay. Click on sign up. I've already signed up to get the unique. So you need to create a login, and as you can see, I'm getting a message that I have already logged in, and I click on API keys to get my API key. So that's my API key. So just save this API key somewhere in the notepad because we will be using this in our Salesforce. Now let's switch to Salesforce, and in Salesforce, we need to enable some settings and permission. So first of all, make sure that we have API enabled permission for current profile. And my current profile is administrator profile. So I click on manage users, profiles, look for administrator, system administrator, and for system administrator, I want to check whether the API enable permission is checked for me or not. So I scroll down, and in in skill level security, in administrative permissions, we'll find out API enabled. So this is already checked for me because I have administrative account. So we successfully passed step 1. Now in step 2, we need to register the site where we will be calling in from our Apex class. So for that, I switch to security control, and remote site settings. And in remote site settings, so I'm going to create a new remote site, and you can see what is remote site. So it's a list of web addresses that your organization can invoke from salesforce.com. So I click on new remote site, and here I give name as open weather map. So it is asking for a URL, and the URL is http://openweathermap.org. So that's the API. Click on save. So same URL, and make sure that we are passing the same URL which we are going to define in our Apex class. So I click on save. In step 3, we are going to create a controller. So I'm going to create a Visualforce page directly. So I write Apex:/test open weather 2. So that's a Visualforce page, and same Visualforce page we would be going to embed on an account object. So I click on test open weather app 2, and I create a controller here, and I give controller name as, let's say, test open. I'll use the same name for controller so that we can remember that it's an there's an association. And test, okay. And also, instead of only controller, I'm going to use a standard controller because we are going to embed this on a Visualforce page. So it is mandatory that a standard controller should be used, and then we use extensions. So in extensions, I just write test open weather 2, and I write show header, couple of settings. I write show header is equal to false, and show header, and also sidebar, so I set as false. I don't want to show them header and sidebar. And when we save it, so first of all, it throws an error message that it does not exist. So we create this controller and we create a method into it. So that's a method. So we have got the, and because of this sidebar false or show header false, not showing anything, so we can skip this part for a time being right now, and we can open it again. We can change the settings later on. Now, first of all, we need to create a controller class, and in controller class, I'm going to write, first of all, we are going to create some variables. So I create public string city get and set. I'll just copy this 2, 3, 4, 5. So from the weather app, I would like to extract the data. I would like to extract the humidity and current weather and pressure. So as you can see, I would like to get the current temperature, pressure, humidity, or we can extract sunrise, sunset, and so on. So I would be extracting city name, temperature, pressure, humidity, minimum temperature, and maximum temperature. So I'm just creating variables for them. So that's for temperature, that's for pressure, then for humidity, humidity, I want temperature minimum, so I write temperature minimum and temperature maximum, and we got get and set. And then in standard controller, I would be writing standard controller, so I Apex standard controller, and I call it as std controller, and we save it. And now I'm going to extract the data from account for current account. So account is equal to, so we have account std controller, dot get record. So it would be getting the current record on which we are operating. Then I would be filtering the record. So select ID, comma, shipping city from account where ID equal to colon account dot ID. So it will extract the ID and the shipping city, and that shipping city we will pass in the API while calling the API from open weather map. Then in next step, I would be writing string account city is equal to account dot shipping city, string API key is equal to, we'll be requiring the API key, and I copy paste that API key. So let me get back to, so I'll click on subscribe once again and sign up. API keys, and I copy this API key, and I just copy this API key, or we can create our new API keys. We have an option for creating new API key, but I'm using the existing one API key, and I just paste that API key over here. So we got the API key. Now we are going to create a REST endpoint. So I create string request endpoint, and this endpoint we would be defining by using the endpoint will be HTTP API dot open weather map dot org slash data slash 2.5 slash weather. So that's the URL when we would be extracting data from so org.data and for weather for a specific weather. And this will be in single quotes. Request endpoint plus equal to, we need to create the complete endpoint. So question mark Q is equal to plus an account city. That's the variable account city. And also we use the same one because we need to pass the API key as well. So REST endpoint, and we would be extracting all the matrices. So I write and units is equal to matrix plus and the app ID or the app key, API key we have extracted. So and ID is equal to plus API key. So the complete URL will be HTTP API whether question mark Q is equal to account city and units is equal to matrix and API key is equal to API key. So that's the complete URL. Now we will be using HTTP protocol for that. So I create new HTTP is equal to new HTTP, and here HTTP we will be using HTTP request because we are using REST API. So is equal to be and it always operates on HTTP. New HTTP request dot set endpoint request endpoint. So the endpoint will be request endpoint. So using this request endpoint, the operation will be done. So request endpoint. So we set the endpoint as request endpoint, and we also need to define method. So request dot set method, and method will be get method because we are extracting data. So method will be get method. Now we would be sending, so HTTP response response is equal to http.send request. So based on this request, using this endpoint, it will connect to weather forecast app. It extracts the data and store the response will get stored into response. Now I'm just checking that if response dot get status code is equal 200, it means if the response is successful, then we need to deserialize the JSON string into collection of primitive data type. So for that, I would be using casting. So I would be using type casting for that. And for that, I simply write the code. So we need to deserialize it. And for deserialization, the code will be mapping would be map string comma object results is equal to map string comma object JSON dot deserialize untyped response dot get body. So we are deserializing it, and then city is equal to string dot value of result dot get name. Then we need to do mapping. So I'll just copy this one for mapping, and this would be main results mapping JSON dot. So we would be mapping it the response, and I write results dot get name. So now we would be extracting the temperature from main results. So right, temperature is a string type, so we would be typecasting it. String dot value of main results dot get. I would be extracting temperature from the temp. So in same manner, we would be extracting the remaining 5 values. So temperature, then I want pressure, then I want humidity, I want temperature minimum, temp underscore min and temp underscore max, and we would be getting the values. So we have temperature, and this temperature, okay, so pressure, this one is humidity, then we have temp underscore min and temp underscore max. And if there's an issue while accessing it, if there's an error, so it will simply print a message. So apex, we can skip that part, or I just write apex pages dot message. My message is equal to new apex pages dot message apex pages dot dot error. There was an error in reading data. And apex pages dot add message my ms. Now that's the controller. Now the next requirement is we need to create The next requirement is we need to create our Visualforce page. We need to design the Visualforce page we have. So let me save this first and let me see if there's any error. If there are some errors, let's sort out those errors. And invalid. Okay, why I'm getting that error? By mistake, I entered wrong constructor. So it's error. Now there is no error. And it's showing an error message. List has no row for assignment because it is extracting account ID and we don't have any account ID right now. We are not passing ID. So it's reading from URL or from the current record. So this is while we're reading from current URL. So now let's design the Visualforce page. So to design Visualforce page, it's quite simple. And I would be showing apex colon page block. And I said title is equal to the current city weather. That's page block. Then apex colon page block section. And in this page block section, apex colon page messages. Now let's display the results. So apex colon output text label is equal to temperature So I just display all the details: temperature, pressure, humidity, temperature minimum, and temperature maximum. Page block section. And now let's test it. In order to test it, there are two ways to test it. For testing, we can to test this, we can embed this on a Visualforce page. We can embed this Visualforce page, or we can use a command button. So we'll use both the ways one by one, and I would like to create a button navigation. So for that, I quickly switch to setup. Click on customize accounts and button links and actions. Create new button or link, and I would be defining a button name as weather, and it would be detail page button. Show content, I would like to show with sidebar and a Visualforce page, and we have Visualforce page. So I select that page, click on save it. And okay, and to show this button, to add this button on layout, we need to go to accounts. And in accounts, we need to embed that. So let's say I click on SAM first of all, and the SAM city is Delhi. So I'm just editing its layout and add that button. A simple add that button. I click on buttons, weather button, and I drag and drop this button over here, custom button. Save it. We have a weather button. Now, when I click on weather button, it should display the data to us. So when we click on weather button, it connects to the weather app, and you can see it's displaying the data, displaying the weather for us. For Delhi weather, pressure is 998, minimum temperature is 33, temperature is 33, humidity is 70, and maximum temperature is 33. So we can validate humidity is 70, pressure is 999 HPA. It's around same, and the minimum and maximum temperature. So that's how we can. This is one way we have created a button, and it's a command link button, or we can embed this on a we can embed that page. And in order to do that, again I click on edit layout, and in edit layout, I'll go to Visualforce pages. I'll go to Visualforce pages. Sorry, Visualforce pages, and I drag and drop this Visualforce page somewhere here in a section. So let's assume I drop it over here. So that's the Visualforce page. And let me set the properties. I'll say show scroll bar. Okay, fine. Save it. And as you can see, whenever we have an embedded Visualforce page, we do not need to click on button. Based on the input city, based on the city extracted from the current account ID, it automatically performs the operations in background. So that's the way how we can create a REST API, how we can create how we can make a REST API call from Salesforce to an external endpoint. So that's all in this video. I hope you found this video interesting. If that's so, don't forget to press like button.